All right, this is the Learning Target 3 video, and we actually just started it already. So a little deja vu here, and it's okay. You can talk while we're recording these. You can ask questions. But we're going to find the rate of change, or slope. And when you have time and volume involved in a problem, the time always keeps changing, right? We talked about. And it's therefore the independent variable because you can't stop it. So it's the x, and volume's the y. So we pick any two pairs of those x's and y's, and we can use the formula that hopefully you have memorized. Subtract your y's, subtract your x's, right? All right, so the slope would be 32 minus 16. And if you pick 32 as your first y, then you have to use 10 as your first x. 10 minus 5. So you get 16 over 5. And is that a fraction that reduces? No, so that's it. That's your slope. In the terms of rise over run, that would be up 16. I was testing you. I've heard that word over all day. It's okay. But over could be left or right. So let's practice using the words right 5. Because if it were left 5, that's a negative, and that's different, right? So up 16, right 5. All right, moving on to number 2. If it were a picture, you could pick a point on the picture, and then pick another point on the picture, and you could use the words rise over run. How far, if you're going from the first point, 0, 10, to the second point, how far up do you go? Be careful. Look at how it's labeled. Up 5. And then how far right? Right 1. So what slope is that? It's positive 5 or positive 1. So the slope is 5. I saw this. Is this fresh or not fresh? Is this familiar? Okay. I just want to make sure it goes from the back of your mind to the front so that we can access it in the next few days, okay? All right, so Learning Target 3 today is simple. Write equations in slope-intercept form, which I heard you already say earlier, y equals mc, right? When you're given various information, 2 points, a point and a slope, one of the graphs, I could throw anything at you, but you're going to be able to write an equation in y equals mx plus b form. So the next slide demonstrates what all of your answers are going to look like. The blue M and the blue B, you're going to find a number to put there. So every answer today will look like y equals some number x plus some number. And here's a few examples. Y equals 3x plus 2. What is the slope of that line? 3. And what's the y-intercept? 2. What is y-intercept, by the way? It's where it crosses the y-axis. So 2 means you'd go to the y-axis, put a point at 2. It's going to cross there. All right, what is the y-intercept of negative 2x? Y equals negative 2x. 0, right? All right, you're remembering this. Let's try a couple of problems. Example 1. Here's a picture of a graph. Write the equation for that graph in slope-intercept form. So we need 2 things, M and B. Because of what's provided on this picture, finding the slope is probably easiest if you think in terms of up, down, left, right. I mean, it's labeled, isn't it? How far do you move from this point to get to the next point? You move down 1, right 4. Down 1, right 4. Rise over run. The down goes on the top, run goes on the bottom, so your slope is negative 1/4. Y-intercept, just by definition, it's where it crosses the y-axis, so where does it cross the y-axis? Negative 2. So your equation today, slope-intercept form, is y equals negative 1/4 x plus a negative 2, but instead of writing plus a negative 2, just write minus 2. There are 2 problems below this on the slide. They're hard to see, so I'll scroll down. But you try these next 2. Even though I didn't give you a picture, it doesn't mean I didn't give you the same information, okay? There's not a picture, but you try them. I'm going to pause the video while we try them. Back now. So in number 1, the slope is 1.5, so M is 1.5. Now I'm going to graph the point 0, 5. I'm just drawing a quick little graph, 0, 5. And what do you notice about that point? Oh, I thought it broke. What do you notice about that point? It's on the y-axis, isn't it? So your b is 5. Your b is 5. So the equation is y equals 1.5x plus 5. Number 2. The point -2, 3. Think about graphing that in your head. Left 2, up 3. Would that be on the y-axis? No. What about the point 0, 1? Would that be on the y-axis? Yeah. That means your b is 1. Your y-intercept is 1 because the x is 0. That would be on the y-intercept. That would be on the y-axis. All right. So all we need now is slope. And if you have 2 points, you can either A, graph the 2 points and do rise over run, or B, use that little formula where you subtract y's and subtract x's. So subtract your y's, 3 minus 1, over subtract your x's, -2 minus 0. So you get 2 over -2 or -1. Your slope is -1. So your answer is y equals -1x. Now, do you ever see a -1 in front of an x? Is the 1 there? No. So y equals -x plus 1. Final answer. All right, is this coming back to you? Remembering some of this? All right, let's try another one then. In this problem, I'm not going to give you the b. Think about the point. Find the equation of a line that passes through the point 3, 5 and has slope -2. Where is the point 3, 5? More importantly, is it on the y-axis? No. So the b is not 5. So what we have is y equals -2x. We know that part of the formula, but we don't know the b. So there are other ways to teach this. Point slope. You can graph it and figure it out. But I'm going to teach it so that you only have to memorize one thing. Y equals mx plus b. When they give you the point 3, 5, they are giving you an x and a y, an x value and a y value that can be used in this equation. So we will use them temporarily, replace y with 5, and replace x with 3. So this will say 5 equals -2 times 3, and we will solve for the b that way. Okay? So 5 equals -6 plus b. We'll add that 6 to the left side and get 11 is the b. Now, we have our m, we have our b, so what is the final answer? Y equals -2x plus 11. And again, there are other ways to teach that, and I'm sure your Algebra 1 teacher taught you point slope, taught you other ways. That's just the way I prefer, so that you only memorize one thing, y equals mx plus b. All right, next slide is talking about parallel and perpendicular slopes. So let's see what we remember before we even look at the slide. What is the relationship of parallel lines? What's the relationship of their slopes? Parallel lines, yeah, they're the same slope, right? So you remember that parallel are the same. All right, do you remember perpendicular? 2 words. Opposite, reciprocal. If you don't have those memorized, then you do need to look at this slide and study it a little bit, okay? But obviously, we remembered this one. Parallel lines have the same slopes. This is the one we need to work on. If a line has slope -1/3, the perpendicular slope would be opposite of a -1/3, that'd be positive, and then flip the 1/3. So the perpendicular slope would be 3. So that's a note card worthy thing if you need to, but perpendicular slopes are opposite reciprocals. All right, so last question, last problem for the notes. Example 4. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through 5, -6 and is perpendicular to the line with an equation y equals -3/2x plus 7. So there's all our information. We need an m and we need a b. All right, we need an m and we need a b. We're going to start with the m. What is the slope of the line that they gave us? Yeah, m is -3/2. Therefore, we're looking for a perpendicular slope, so I'll add a little symbol there. An upside down T, that's the symbol for perpendicular. So the perpendicular slope to -3/2 would be opposite and reciprocal. So it would be +2 over +3. Yes. So step 1, done. Y equals 2/3 x. Now, fingers crossed. Is the point that they gave us on the y-axis? It's not, so we can't put the number for b there. We're going to have to do what we did in the last problem. Take that 5 and replace the x with 5. And take that -6 and replace y with -6. So -6 equals 2/3 times x value, 5. And now, Algebra 2 Lab, help me out. Fractions. I put that thing away just right now. No fancy calculators just yet. What's 5 times 2/3? 10/3. Awesome. Okay, now what do we need to do to get b by itself? We need to subtract the 10/3 to the other side. So -6 minus 10/3 equals b. If we multiplied by 3, we'd end up having to divide by 3 again later. Okay, but you might be able to do something there. But how do you subtract two numbers when one of them is a fraction? You have to have a common denominator. And that denominator needs to be 3, since you already have a fraction with denominator 3. So how do you turn a -6 into a denominator 3? Multiply by 6. 3 times 6, that'll be 18/3. -18/3. If you struggle with that, that's what we're doing in the next lab unit. Adding and subtracting fractions. All right? But when you subtract -18/3 minus 10/3, you get -18/3. Now this is Algebra 2. You have a fancy calculator. So I have no problem if the calculator will turn on. Okay, I have no problem with you using this, -6 minus 10/3, to do something that you already know how to do, just to do it faster. The answer is -28/3. But you have to be able to do it yourself before you use that fancy calculator to do it. All right, but now finish the problem. What is the slope-intercept form? Our m was 2/3, our b was -28/3. So our final answer, y equals 2/3 x minus 28/3. And that's Learning Target 3 notes. Nothing new, all Algebra 1.